Hey, I'm Riggers, thanks for dropping in. Today I want to talk about Sonic Origins and by extension Sonic Origins Plus, the add-on they released a year later for it. This is my physical copy of it, very nice artwork. Here's the back with gameplay screenshots and what this one comes with, the DLC, which unlike Sonic Mania Plus they didn't put the DLC on disc, which I can only imagine is to drive up more sales, so when this gets sold second hand, people who buy it will have to buy the DLC separately, as opposed to it just being all on the disc for a limited amount of people to use and enjoy. This physical edition, I'll just very quickly show you, comes with a nice little booklet with various art and lovely drawings of characters, places, cover arts and manuals, box arts, all that nice stuff. And here is the interchangeable cover. This is the European style Sega Mega Drive cover. But I want to talk today about Sonic Origins, what I think of it, because there's some things which I share the common consensus of, and there's some things which I don't really see other people talk about online. So, Sonic Origins, quick rundown. It is HD widescreen new ports based upon and built up upon from the previous, let me get my facts right, Christian Whitehead led developed ports that were released previously on smartphones and digitally on the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 and no, they weren't released on PC, were they? Of Sonic CD. No, Sonic CD was released on PC, that port, but the ports of Sonic 1 and 2, I think they were just iPhone and maybe Android exclusive, because other platforms had the Mega Drive compilation emulated versions. So this gathered up all those iPhone high quality ports, the Sonic CD one, and added brand new Sonic 3 and Knuckles. Both games combined as one game, as a new true widescreen HD brand new dedicated port, and weaves them together in a narrative with new animation cutscenes, the beginning and the end of the overall narrative, but in between beginning and end of each game, so it weaves it all into one story, weaving in slightly to Sonic Frontiers. When I say Sonic Fortunes then, it's because I was trying to say Sonic Frontiers with Amy's retroactively added interesting fortune telling and tarot cards. They add that into a cutscene that prelude Sonic CD, and she also uses them into Sonic Frontiers as her ability in that another story alternate canon DLC thing where she flies around with tarot cards. So you've got those classic games, same great gameplay, looking better than ever, nice new animations. You got it presented with interestingly, the art style and the characters that are presented on those little islands, they ended up being the same graphics that we found out Sonic Superstars had. So those models and characters were released before we knew what Sonic Superstars was. Even the name of this, Sonic Origins, cover up that bit. That's very similar to the internal project name Sonic Orion, which Sonic Superstars had for a while. But I'm getting off topic. What I want to talk about is what it does good and bad. So as a compilation, it's called Sonic Origins, so you're not going to expect much more from it. It's just giving you the main highlights of those earlier games. The big ones, Sonic 1, 2 and 3, and Knuckles. And then Sonic CD, which in more recent years, when it came on the PlayStation 2, it wasn't even included on the main compilation. It was part of the Gems collection, because it was considered a more niche title. It wasn't as much a desired one, it wasn't as well known, but in the years since 2005 onwards, it's become a game that's been more widely released, been more played and appreciated, and I think no one else more so than Sega themselves care about it more as a game now. It seems that way anyway, because I don't think it's a liked game. I don't think the general populace cares about it as much as Sega seems to now, making it one of the main games in line with Sonic 1, 2 and 3. And weaving it into the overall narrative as well, because it's a very different sort of game. what with the whole future, past, and everything else that goes on. It has a different feel to it. But one of my problems with Sonic CD in this collection is the original 2011 port they did. It had the option to choose between the normal soundtrack and the American soundtrack. This port, I've looking online, I've been through every setting, I've tried to toggle every single possible option. I can never get anything other than the American market-oriented soundtrack to play, which I don't like at all, and I think sounds awful, and it's really irritating. People whinge online about Sonic 3 Knuckles is ruined because it has the wrong songs for Ice Cap, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think is it Launch Battery Zone and Carnival Night Zone that have, is it called Launch Battery? No, Flying Battery is it called? Launch Base, I'm getting them muddled up. But so there's 3 zones that have all the songs changed in Sonic 3 and Knuckles, and that's for copyright reasons, the whole Michael Jackson fiasco. Look up Sonic 3 and Michael Jackson if you don't know much about that, because I can't bother going into all that drama and controversy and the rights issues to that right now. And I also agree with that. It's a shame, and the substitute music is even worse sounding versions of the original, like, prototype versions of the tracks. But anyway, not getting into all that, I agree with the general consensus that that was a shame, and I share the public and the fans' sentiments with that. However, nobody at all seems to be saying how annoying it is to only have the American soundtrack for Sonic CD. I was blessed when I was trying to find the normal soundtrack. This was like late 2024, so the game had been out for a few years at that point. You know, it was like standardised in terms of its updates and its content, but there was no, I changed every setting. If it is anywhere, it's hidden in a very, very obscure place, or just labelled stupidly. If it is there, please tell me about it, but I spent a long time looking and I can't seem to find a single option to change the soundtrack, and I don't believe that's a thing that this compilation lets you do anyway, change the soundtracks. So I found that extremely disappointing, and I just played most of it with very turned down music because I didn't enjoy it at all. I like the normal soundtrack, I don't like the American one. It's made for American markets, American tastes, and you know, the whole culture of changing the names of things, like this game, Swedish, develops amazing platform for PlayStation, Cooler World. In America, it's called Roll Away, because apparently it needs to be spelled out exactly what it does. And you've got other things, Philosopher's Stone, Sorcerer's Stone. You know, there's a lot of dumbing down, because apparently that's something that people who market products feel needs to happen to the American audiences, which I think is an insult to American audiences, because they're far more intelligent than I think all these companies seem to believe. I don't think things need to be spelled out that in such plain terms. I don't think things need to be dumbed down at all. We're all human beings at the end of the day. We've got common sense and we can gauge what something might be from the overall branding and presentation. I don't think things need to be spelled out quite so plainly. And in terms of like difference in taste, I mean, if you're going to release a game that's made by the Japanese developers in another market, in the past I suppose I can understand things where they used to replace like little rice bowls and onigiri and all of the Japanese sweets and snacks, like in Kirby and other franchises. They replace that with little sandwiches and burgers because that represents Western taste and Western culture. They don't do that as much now, if really at all in a lot of cases. They don't like censor the Japanese culture and replace it with American culture. But replacing all the music, I mean, that just seems unnecessary. Like if the music doesn't adhere to American culture, then you know, how much further would you go with those reactions? Like, is a blue hedgehog not allowed and it needs to be like, I don't know, a blonde princess? It just seems silly, really. I don't really understand the need to change music. Maybe it's because I wasn't around in the 90s, apart from the last 2 months of it where I was a newborn baby. But I think it's a silly concept anyway. So that's my main grievance with it, the lack of having the normal soundtrack for Sonic CD, only having access to the American one, which is irritating. My other gripes with it is this Sonic Origins Plus did nothing other than add an additional playable character, which is just, you know, a bit of a novelty gimmick for the sake of making a different playthrough feel a bit different. doesn't actually add anything of real substance to the games, and not something I'm ever going to be too interested in. When it was first hinted at there was going to be a new compilation, when there was the initial round of leaks and discussion, and people were wondering what was going to be in it, I wrote down a little list of things I thought would be cool to be in it. The things I thought would realistically be in it, or realistically could be in it, and then there's another list that was like a pipe dream list. Basically nothing of that came of it, because they just did Sonic 1, 2, 3, Knuckles and CD. And then with Origins Plus, they came out a year later, after Origins, and this is when it got its first physical release, because the original Origins did not get a physical release. All they've added in terms of new games is the Game Gear games. All 16 of the Game Gear games. Sonic Drift 1 and 2, Labyrinth, Chaos, Triple Trouble, Tails Adventure, Tails Sky Patrol, the Game Gear versions of Spinball, Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine, Sonic 1 and 2, Game Gear, whatever else I've missed off. Or is it 16 or is it 12? Sorry, I apologise, 12, not 16. I just invented 4 games that don't exist then. Sonic Blast as well, oh, that's horrible. It just felt like the lazy option. Oh, hang on, I've just seen a nice bit of art I'd like to show you. But it just felt like the lazy option, to be honest. Like, yes, they made this was the original premise of Sonic. They made this a better playable character in Sonic Superstars, which was cool. But adding just the Game Gear games, not the Master System versions of the games for Sonic 1, 2 and Chaos, and adding Knuckles Chaotix from 32X. They could have added Sonic Advance 1, 2 and 3, I doubt they're majorly hard to emulate. Some Game Boy Advance titles, Sonic Battle and Sonic Pinball Party could have been added as well. They could do a compilation of a lot of these older titles that aren't very intensive to run and aren't very overly complicated to emulate, especially the 2D sprite based ones. Now, I'd be quite surprised if it was some sort of majorly taxing and difficult thing to emulate. Knuckles Chaotix in 2020, well, when that came out, 2022, whatever. But now, they could do like a cheap sort of, even if it's just like an emulated collection. It doesn't have to be dedicated retool ports or anything. It's like a compilation of these older games: Knuckles Chaotix, Sonic Advance 1, 2, 3, Sonic Pinball Party, Sonic Battle, Sonic 1, 2 and Chaos for the Master System. And there's some other things like Sonic Shuffle. Doesn't matter if it's the worst thing ever, purely for the sake of the overall preservation of the franchise and making things more readily accessible. It's very patchwork what is and isn't available. Like, I don't think it's been officially confirmed, but it's no, it's not at this point, has it? But the same sort of initial round of leaks, like in the lead up to Sonic Frontiers when it was Sonic Rangers, and months before it was released, or sorry, announced, there was all these details coming through it, like it's going to be open world, it's going to be this, it's going to be that, and that all basically came true. But it makes sense, going off the current leaks that I saw a while ago, that the next thing would be a remaster of Sonic Unleashed. That does make a bit of sense. Whether it's true or not, I don't know, but it certainly would help that with, because that's sort of trapped on older consoles. You can play it on the Series X, but you can't play it on modern PlayStations, and it's not on PC either. And apparently it will include all the DLC baked into the game for the first time separately, which I think the leak said it was going to be baked into the main story or something, which I would definitely disagree with, and I hope that is fake, that part, because the DLC levels are a bit shit. Very much just like chopping random objects around and just a bit nah. But I don't like the fact that as of now the most robust collections for Sonic is still those PlayStation 2 ones. But with a franchise that's got so many entries and is as prolific, sorry, I got something in my eye, as prolific as Sonic, the amount of games it's had and how long it's gone on for, I feel that it should have like a modern compilation collection re-release. Like they could easily do a compilation, even if they just released it digitally, as annoying that would be. But knowing that franchise, they would do a physical release eventually. If it just had like just everything from like the first like 15 years of the franchise, for example. Like Sonic Heroes has never been re-released as well. Like not everything has to be remasters and remakes. Just being able to have all those games on a more accessible platform. Like here's a treasure trove of like the first like half of the franchise's history. There you go. It's something that I feel is a really misstep, and it's something that I feel would bring a lot of the prices of these more obscure games down. Sonic Pocket Adventure on the Neo Geo Pocket Color as well, which I've got right here. This one using some Sonic Adventure art here, but the game itself is a unique full-length adventure. It takes inspiration in its like music style from the other games and reinterprets some of the music. But one really cool thing about this game is it acts as like a transitionary game between eras. So Eggman starts off looking like how he did in the older games, and then he transitions to this newer art style, which is a really cool touch. But yeah, Sonic Origins, it's good for the gameplay of the newer games. It's presented well, it looks nice, but you know, it has musical issues, obviously, and I think as a compilation it's quite lackluster. Like it could have been a much more robust thing, like here's the dedicated new ports of these, and then here's like a trove of stuff from all over the franchise. Here's the Master System ones, the Game Gear ones, here's something from the 32X, here's the original Dreamcast ports of Sonic 1 and Adventure 1 and 2 and Sonic Shuffle as well. Here's the Game Boy Advance games, and they could have also thrown in a couple other random things like, I don't know, Rivals 1 and 2 for the PSP. Like, I mean, PSP is exceptionally easy to emulate. The Smart Fridge could probably emulate the PSP at this rate. It's very easy to emulate PSP, and you can run things exceptionally well. Even my old crusty Windows 7 PC can emulate stuff on the PSP and upscale it. So I don't see what the excuse would be to not do something like that nowadays. So it is a shame that there's so many of these older games locked to older platforms. They're not widely accessible, and even if they're fairly cheap, some of them, not everyone has those systems. And for the games that are extraordinarily expensive, you know, it would really help making those more widely available and just getting people to be able to try them. Having like, if individually released, no one really in the right mind is going to buy Sonic Shuffle again just on its own. But lump it in with another 30 odd games, then you've got like a trove of history, and it's like these wonderful, you have like the Atari 50th anniversary compilation, Tetris Forever, the Worms Armageddon one as well. So that includes a new remaster of Worms Armageddon, includes a few extra miscellaneous random games, but it has this whole timeline of the history of the franchise. The Tetris one includes a variety of different Tetris games. They added more in updates, and that includes like a history of Tetris. The Atari collection includes, well, they had a huge amount of stuff to begin with, and then they added 2 more expansions later on, and that's a whole timeline of the history of the games. And you've got 2800, 5200, 7800, Jaguar, Lynx, arcade stuff, unreleased stuff, new stuff inspired by the originals, a whole tapestry of stuff. If they did like in the style of those, we even got one of those companies like Digital Foundry, I believe it is, who does these timeline compilations and the history of the games. They could have like a wonderful timeline of Sonic the Hedgehog history with concept art videos, interviews, old gameplay footage. They could weave things like Sonic Extreme into that, and having that whole timeline presentation. I think that would be a really cool idea for a compilation. Like living through the history of it. Like, this was when this was released, this is this specific version of that, here's this obscure thing, this is when they did this advertising promotion, this was the context of that, and here's the original version of this. And I think that would be cool. And they could throw a couple of things like, if possible, here's a little demo or pre-release version of this particular game, or here's this, that, and have a few little unreleased oddities as part of the compilation as well. I think that'd be really cool. But yeah, that's just some brief thoughts on Sonic Origins, and my intense desire for what they could do with another compilation, because I do feel quite strongly on that. That'd be a great idea. But yeah, thank you for watching. Any thoughts, leave them down below, and I'll see you on the next video.